Take me to another place where the fairy tales don't end. Magical, magical land. Magical land. To another place where the fairy tales don't end. Magical, magical land.
Today's guest is the director of the Organic Cotton Accelerator. Please welcome to the show, Ruud Schute. Hello, Ruud. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Hey, morning, Jens. Yeah, good. First day back after Easter. The weather is not inviting us to go out anymore after the weekend. So, very happy to be here and very happy to meet you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. It's great. So before we go into innovation and what the Cotton Accelerator is about and all these interesting topics, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What is your story?
Thank you. And then, stop me when you think needed. Everybody likes talking about themselves. Me too. I'm a Dutch national, and I'm back in my native Amsterdam after 30 years. I graduated in textile engineering. That says a lot about me, probably. Engineer at heart still. So I'm somebody who thinks in building blocks and likes to calculate everything I do. But after my engineering degree, went into retail, through the store side into typical buying. Buying was very transactional in the 90s, and was very lucky to fulfill my wish to travel, my wish to meet different cultures. And eventually live out in Asia and travel and work from Asia and see how the supply side of retail went from very transactional purchasing through into a much more conceptual, organized, and I would say consulted way of working. Always trying to keep that balance between bottom up, we need product ABC, and fill in the urgent requirements. So there was always that pace, that drive to change continuously, but also increasingly being able to take ownership of a top-down approach where partnerships, where long-term commitments, where the product lines became more and more influential, and we're looking for different ways of transacting with your manufacturers, your suppliers, but also with those who do communications on your behalf, with anybody you work with. And I would say the 90s and 2000s were a very exciting period. I don't know if it's being Dutch, but there is always this sort of, on the one hand, outgoingness, and I kept that going in Asia as well. I think at the same time that sort of value driven, am I true to myself, am I true to the companies I work for? And when you have that running through your mind when you travel through India, Bangladesh, Pakistan in those days, that already early sort of put the seeds that I'm not sure if we can do this forever. I'm not sure if this is in the interest of the locals here. I know why I do what I do for my corporate and my customer, but is this doing the right thing at the back end of the supply chain? And for me, that sort of came to the point that when a big transition became possible in my life, I also took that then in my move back to Europe to really reconsider and looked long time at factories, looked long time at where does sustainability take us nowadays? Is it compliance, i.e. human rights? Is it sustainability in raw materials? Is it in how we collaborate? And more, having looked back, I see the huge opportunity where we are today is that the world is starting to understand that while we compete, we also collaborate in order to do the right thing. And for me, the openness to that has become the bridge that I want to make use of to do what I'd always set myself out to do over those 30 years, and yeah, call it pay back a little bit in sustainability and bringing parties together to fulfill those same ambitions, because it's not something unique to me or a small group. I think everybody has those ambitions, but we're all on our own track. We're all busy doing what we're doing, and at the same time looking for those opportunity to collaborate as well as compete in this world. And yeah, that's where it's taken me at the moment, and that's where I get my energy.
Nice. Thank you very much. So how did innovation play a role in your journey when you have been living abroad, working with different cultures, working in different countries?
Yeah, I think first of all, if you're in retail, everybody likes to go back to the fast moving world of retail. And if you look at that day by day, you think, well, is it fast? Is it not fast? When I look back today, it's incredibly fast. And even if it's not fast in your shop, you become quickly aware that it's very fast in somebody else's shop. So innovation is ongoing. And in order to stay relevant, you learn very early that you need to be able to adapt. I would say innovation is unstoppable. And luckily, I also learned early on that innovation is the only thing that actually brings new, not just ideas, but also money into the market. It what drives everything that we do is based on innovation. And we often look at key periods like now COVID, or in the past maybe triggered by the steam engine or whatever larger part of innovation is happening. But I see those moments as catalysts now. I think they help us look back at moments that things really had to change. But I'm also well aware that the change is ongoing, and the innovation that is available just gets more nurtured at some times and perhaps less at others. And working in a retailer who had good and bad fortunes, or good and bad periods, however you want to call it, you then also see quickly that innovation has its friends when your curve is upwards in a very steady way and everybody can rally behind it. But when you come to the top of your results and your curve is diminishing and everybody's getting much more gritty on how to get the next dollar in, you see the openness to innovation almost decline in the opposite direction. So yeah, for yourself to stay open to that is always the challenge, but you can overcome that with a night's sleep. But to keep your teams, the company that you work in open to it, and all the stakeholders involved, that is really the skill, I think. So for me, the innovation, and if you think IT, then good luck to IT, or chemical or medical, everybody has their own field there. But the one piece that sits under it really is how we human beings collaborate to adopt that innovation or resist it. And there's also a lot of resistance to innovation, and either because of financial investments that need to be safeguarded, or commitments have been made, or partnerships are already sealed, and they can be just as much a barrier to innovation. Often to look over your shoulder and see the other competitor going past you, having taken on that piece and doing extremely well with it. So it's a double-edged sword. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Did you experience any differences from the different cultures you worked in when it comes to innovation?
Yeah, very much so. Of course, we're all human beings, so we were looking for the opportunities that are out there. I would definitely come back to what I said earlier, that when countries are growing, there is a huge openness to innovation. Anything goes, everything gets sucked up like a sponge, really. Everybody's super open to any way of applying anything, which can leave a rather chaotic impression as well. And then indeed you see those cultures where you're sort of on the top of your curve, and then you see also that innovation is stifling, and a lot of, and that helps, or it happens in governments as well as in companies, that the rule book comes out and more and more past learnings get put down in rule books to make sure that bad things don't happen again. And of course, then you see this huge barrier on innovation. And there are cultures in their different growth phase of each country that I've worked in. You see very different approaches, a very different openness there.
So if we go further down into innovation and linking that a bit to the fashion industry and to the cotton industry, what have you experienced from an innovation and development perspective over the last years? I mean, you're in the business for what did you say, plus 30 years. What have been the big moves from an innovation perspective in the industry?
Yeah, I think being always on the trading side of any product. My job was very much in building the link between the retail organization and the factories. I think where I've seen the steady progression on a global level is 30 years ago, we wouldn't even tell you which manufacturer we worked with because that was a secret. And these trade secrets gave me something over you who didn't know that manufacturer. What went on inside the factory of that manufacturer? Who cared? It's about the deal. And what you saw in that 30 years is a very slow entry of the awareness that next to the bottom-up, very transactional way of working, we also need to build collaborative bridges, understand partnerships, be authentic and truthful to those partnerships, and not just call them out and then step back as soon as we run into trouble. And the steps that brought this along were always business related. So either quality, which had to be improved, styling, IT facility. In the last 15 years, and unfortunately triggered by real disasters, compliance, behavior of factory owners and safeguards they put in place into gender equality, human rights, that became big. And you saw every time it needed to be done, you saw that the industry could do it. But always a mix of top-down, how much can I commit to a partnership, and bottom-up, how can I still stay agile and free in my negotiation space to make another choice if I so want to tomorrow. And what you see under that is the base of collaboration just growing and growing, and more retailers are getting to know each other. This whole idea that I'm not letting you know where I manufacture is gone nowadays. And if anything, we're calling each other and we're looking, hey, how are you solving this? What do you do on, when it comes to effluence treatment, and would you work with a factory in this country under those conditions? Is transparency big enough? That actually gets me to again why I sit here. What I do now is I think with sustainability becoming less than a random topic and becoming a big topic now, and probably something that is bigger than the quality and compliance and everything we looked at before. What you see is those earlier achievements have now built a platform of understanding, at least in the industry, that brands as well as NGO stakeholders, certifying bodies, even auditing bodies and verification bodies all understand on what level we need to work together. And that has just been a wonderful achievement, I think, to see what has come out of all these little fires that we've already overcome.
Let's use that as a bridge. I mean, now you're working in the Organic Cotton Accelerator as a program director. Before we go into all the details, let's go into what is the Organic Cotton Accelerator for people who have never heard about the organization. What is it?
Yeah, and maybe start because you're right. It's always a difficult one if you're so familiar with something working in it. And why does cotton have to be organic? Because it's not something we consume. No, very clear. Maybe to start with the original group of organic farmers that started in India. It is the antidote to intensive farming. In other words, chemicals, pesticides were never really introduced to this method of farming. And the farmers, and we're talking really smallholders with very little capital, their biggest challenge is capital investment. In other words, they may not even have had the access to pesticides and fertilizers, etc. So the farming group that I'm talking about started from crop rotation and very natural ways of keeping their soil health at the right level. And this is really the key. I come from a farming background, but organic farmers farm different crops, and that can be maize, that can be chickpea, that can be any edible crop. But luckily for them, cotton brings a higher return on investment generally, and cotton is also wanted, and therefore there are a number of farm groups who will help these farmers with their input. The biggest challenge for these farmers came with the GMO, so the genetically manipulated seeds that are out there. Those seeds are great in many ways. They bring anti-pesticides, they bring yield increases, but they also cost money, and they also go together with a farming mindset that drives the farmers to want to grow cotton year after year. And that doesn't go together with soil health, with the whole ethos of how you farm in the most sustainable way to yourself, you as a farmer. And often the requirement of GMO seed goes together with, I would say, more bad education and bad practice in terms of overusing pesticides and fertilizers, leading to very dried out situations of soil, and also then a completely diminishing return on yields for those farmers. And what you see at the end of the curve, and I don't want to overplay that, but is real poor health and poor economic situations for farmers who've gone down that route. So that's what sits behind for me. I got to know that in 2005, 2008, that this was a big problem, and that spoke to me even in a bigger way than what I saw in factories in Bangladesh and India, because you somehow intuitively feel that those who are really at the beginning of the supply chain are also those who see least of the economic rewards there. And it's therefore, so it's not even from a cotton perspective alone, it's from a holistic business case of those farmers that I realized that in my professional capacity, wearing suit and tie and coming through with my shiny shoes, I was actually purchasing something at scale from farmers who can make business decisions, but are being led down a pattern of choices that often didn't work out well for them. And that awareness for me has been the catalyst to want to support organic farming. And luckily I worked for a company who really put their money where their mouth was, and they really invested in that. And through that, I could also see that simply by bringing the consumer's business case through the supply chain, And through an organization that we worked at the time down to farm level, the moment you connect the consumer business case with the farmer business case, you see something grow. You see that more farmers joined that, and multiple farmers were coming out of really desperate situations, of especially debt situations, because inputs were being provided for them, be it organic inputs and non-GMO seed, and it's that the business case that actually drove me more. And then the art became how to tell your customer in the stores what the impact on farm level is, and that this isn't a choice to buy organic just for me as a customer. And of course that choice needs to be nurtured, but it's really the storytelling of what has happened down the supply chain that makes this so interesting. And you see that more and more today, and it's working very well, I think.
Yeah. So how is the Organic Cotton Accelerator utilizing this knowledge and supporting the industry to move?
Yeah, good question. I like that one. So the hardest thing for me to explain to people is, what is it that the Organic Cotton Accelerator does, and how do you do this? Because even without us today, the industry will continue, be it on a low level or lower level. And it tends to go in the last 15 years from crisis to crisis. So what we've done, and the group who set this up well before I joined did this extremely well. They looked at the crises that have happened over the last 15 years and really identified 3, 4, 5 key points why organic cotton isn't in itself finding the growth that it should do. And number one is what I just mentioned, the coming of genetically modified seed in the organic standards, which are set at European, American level. The use of these seeds are not permitted, but for the farming community to buy organic seed is very, very difficult. So that is one of the key points that Oka started working on already 4 years ago, is both a cultivar breeding program as well as a program in which we support the breeders of non-GMO seed to bring back a degree of yield and a degree of purity there, because we can't have too much contamination in that whole seed provision. And then the number 2 requirement, what was really needed, was farmer input. So the farm groups, who are fantastic organizations, some are NGOs, some are business, who are supporting the organic farmers, told us very early on what farmers need is input facility at the time that they sow, the fertilizers, the pesticides, the non-chemical, as well as the training, so that once they achieve the certified organic status, that premium can be harnessed in an additional reward. And that is really what Oka does today. We bring together the brands and set up programs for the medium long term together with these brands, at least 1 year, so from sowing through to harvest, but preferably 3 years, where we can really go also look at converting farmers who are just coming in the race and provide them through a guaranteed uptake with the finance and the seed and inputs that they need, so that for the farmer, the initial contribution to become organic is a low threshold. And then what we do at the end of the season, the harvest pickup, we commit those brands through a memorandum of understanding to a 10% premium for these organic farmers. And they get this additional 10% on the product they sell, which is called the seed cotton. So this is the very raw cotton, including quite a bit of the plant and the seed there. And that lifts them in that business case slightly above their conventional peers locally. And what Oka then does as a third part is we validate that whole thing. So we make sure that we get the input from the farm groups. We send out some third-party auditors to verify. Have some whizzes here in Amsterdam who are very good with data, Excel, and numbers. And we turn that around into the report of the business case for the farmer. And that's the product that we give back to the brands, which helps them in their CSR reporting, their CSR decision making, and also their budget decision making. And through the labeling on the garment and this report, we can communicate back to the customer what the impact of his or her choice on product level has been. I think that's new. I'm not aware of anybody else doing this, at least not in cotton, where you really go through the dots and connect the consumer's business case back to farm and then loop it back round to the consumer with the impact of what the chain together has achieved.
Yeah. Let's see if I understood it right. So it's in a simplified way, it's basically you are helping the industry to get better from an organic cotton perspective, helping to bridge the gap between the end user of the product and the farmer who is basically starting to grow the cotton, and make all of that better from a sustainability aspect, and helping the brands as well then to achieve their sustainability goals while selling and buying organic cotton or storing it into their garments, if I understood that right.
Thank you very much. That's a very good short summary. Yeah, brilliant. So it is bridging this mutual business case and giving the customer call it the guarantees is too much, but the chain of custody that tells them that this really is what you think it is.
Yeah. What I love about that is
farmer.
What I love about that is that you basically work with all players of the process or of the chain. So where you basically you improve everyone at the same time. So you're basically vertical integrated into the whole industry, helping the whole industry to get better, and specifically better from a sustainability perspective. And I don't know the numbers, but I'm pretty sure that the consumers will go more likely buying organic cotton if they know what it is about. So understanding as a consumer what organic cotton is one of the key points to make it more aware and to drive that going up.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're very fortunate there that organic cotton is small. It's less than 1% of the total cotton crop at the moment. But we are very lucky that we have a number of very large brands behind us who keep organic cotton in their sustainability roadmap. And their communication is strong. And that is always because we work with a lot of data, so there's a lot of factual information behind it. But indeed, I hear also from you, and I see that every time I talk about organic cotton, is to still bring it to the customer as this is what it is. Apart from a National Geographic documentary, which was made a couple of years ago, it's difficult to bring this concept to the customer. However, I learned myself, and I was very lucky 10 years ago, I worked with a buying team, and one of the directors said, I'm not sure if we should continue. And I said, please allow me. Let's take an intake, so a range of garments, and then half we label and half we do not label. And they both went to Germany. And in Germany, some customers bought these articles without knowing they were organic, and some from the label could see this is organic. And the price was the same, the condition, everything was the same. But what you saw is that the sell-through of the organic labeled garment was nudged by about 5%. That doesn't sound like much, but if you sell 5% quicker, then your turnover speed, your profitability, your retention of cash in your stock holding, everything is affected by that. And we actually proved there was a real business case seen by the customer simply through the faster sale, only nudged by this little label. So indeed, I still find it difficult to find methods to communicate with the customer and really say, this is what sits behind it. But we're hugely encouraged that customers are nudged in their decision making through the labels that advertise this.
Do you, as the Organic Cotton Accelerator, do you take a role in the communication piece as well, or do you think it should be done from the brands?
Really good question, and very much in transition. So OCA, the Organic Cotton Accelerator, was started in 2016. And the first work was discovering what OCA could do and mean. And we set up the pilot projects, started working with the brands, and the brands already have their own CSR reporting. More and more at the moment, do we see that coming together? And indeed, more and more are the brands who are contributors actually saying, okay, we want you to step up and bring out that message more and more. That is hugely encouraging, but that also to a degree slows down the process because you need a lot of alignment. Then you have to talk to each of those brands and say, okay, but you actually own the programs. Now, what can you all agree on? What do we together think is the right message? And of course, as in any supply chain, you talk about, if we do that, we want to do it authentically and not cover up issues that could be misrepresented. So now where do we start? Do we start by telling people what may go wrong, but why that is in a situation of improving? Or do we only tell the fantastic picture? And that process is going on big time behind the screens and on the servers at the moment. So anybody who looks at our website and our publications will see that there are a lot of areas that is coming together on. But it's a slow process to make sure that you have everybody on board. And that, by the way, isn't just the brands. There is also the standard setting bodies, the Control Union, the GOTS, Textile Exchange, those who own the chain of custody. So the alignment there is huge and extremely rewarding because as you build the story, you also give the whole program direction. And it's nice to see the two going hand in hand.
Yeah. What's quite interesting, because I work with a lot of young people in one of my projects, everyone below 30 is into sustainability. So when we talk a bit inside that program, where we look into what do you want to impact in the future with your job choices and where you want to be, it's always sustainability is a key part of that. So it's one of the main pillars for people to decide what they're doing who are under 30. And I think that's a strong message as well, because they will be educated on what organic cotton is. If you now fast forward 10 years, it will be interesting to see what has changed just from the demand perspective. Not saying that even if you would not do anything on your side, just the demand already will get higher and people are willing to pay more, I'm pretty sure, going forward to do the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you've also indirectly articulated is that, and that's also how I think all of my colleagues in OCA feel as well, is that we're part of a movement as much as just driving organic cotton. Organic cotton is great, but we are one fiber amongst many fibers. And we are looking very much after the the smallholder, the farmer. But what we also want to do is bring good data to the surface, good ways of working to establish between natural fibers, man-made fibers, what are good customer choices. That whole industry, which is mostly hinged around the Higg index, which is, again, a very insider tool used by most of the retailers, is meant to help us make good decisions. But yeah, what is the use if those decisions are made for the customer without the customer understanding what the full impact of those decisions is? So I think that this whole movement of awareness is something that we can't even see where this is going to take us even today. It's so big, and it's crosses over in so many disciplines and geographies, and and like you just said, the values that we grow up with and the motivation to do.
If we finishing off the business part with an innovation perspective, how do you see innovation inside the Organic Cotton Accelerator and in what you're doing? How is innovation playing a part or a role in the whole going forward?
Yeah, so there's a number of products. So I would definitely say data technology has helped us a lot in building this business case that I talked about, i.e. the story from the farm back to the consumer. We couldn't do that without the data platforms that we use today and the good communication that sits behind that. One silver bullet that we're looking for in a big way, and one reason why OCA exists, is that the whole sphere, the supply chain really, is brought together through a chain of custody, which is a certificate. And these certificates are still very manual. They are bureaucratic. They are very transactional. And there's, as anywhere where there is demand, there is also opportunity for fraud. So that whole chain of custody is something where we all feel very strongly that this can be improved. But there are so many barriers there. And not so many, but a couple of big barriers. One, for example, is the exchange of data and GDPR. So if I own a certificate today, what happens with my data when that certificate, including the consignment of cotton, goes to another person who wants to communicate about that? So there's a whole data piece. And the thing we're looking for really is a bit, you have to think like blockchain, but now for liquids, fluids, and cotton is fluid rather than it's a staple like most of the foodstuffs. So to identify where a consignment or a T-shirt has been in its younger life, the chain of custody, we know we're on the verge of seeing through all the new innovations that are coming out, a traceability system that allows us to see where this came from, which could hopefully do away with all this manual side and a very blocking side of proving that what you're buying as a customer actually is what it claims to be. And that's where we're super busy, super excited, and really looking for that silver bullet, scanning across startups and trying to reach out to the whole world to say, if you see a solution here that goes over and above auditing, validating, and issuing certificates, then talk to us. And by the way, there's many people who want to talk to you, but that is... So
they should talk to you
but it's
first.
Coming. You can feel it's coming. Definitely me first, yeah. Definitely OCA first, yeah. And definitely the sustainability initiatives first. If you deploy such a thing, use it wisely.
Yeah.
Cool.
Let's go into the last rapid fire questions, which are slightly disconnected. and you can answer them on a personal level or from a business level, as you wish. So if you would be part of a program, or if you could choose to lead a program that is affecting every human being on Earth, what program would it be, and why would it be that program?
It is on the top of my mind, and it still is on the top of my mind. But indeed, I'd love to work on transparency and traceability, chain of custody. It has been the red thread in what I've done for the last 30 years. Is it a quality perspective, or is it the way a product is made? I think blockchain is hugely exciting, and I would love to work on a project like this, but for more fluid commodities, so that those who make claims at the end can really refer back to the origin of that product. So that I see that as the bit that will complete the loop. And we're getting there with larger transactions, but we're nowhere near there with chemicals, with fluids, with cotton. So I think that must be one of the most beautiful projects you can work on.
Yeah. Where will you be in a year from now? And we're now early 2021. As said, you can do that personally or business-wise, or both. Yeah,
I will still be in Amsterdam, I think, having only just arrived here a couple of months ago. I'm loving it to be back in Holland. It's been a challenge with COVID to see Amsterdam for all its beauty, but I really intend to do that. And on a business level, or on an accelerator level, there is so much work to do here, and we have a good strategy laid out at 2030. The brands behind us believe in it, and to put that back really in a business relation, I think we're looking now at growing the awareness of organic cotton, but we now also need to work with the brands to really explain this is not something you can buy overnight. It's something that needs to be nurtured. It needs to be fostered. We need to work with farm groups. We need to change the industry, and that's not done overnight. So I think in a year from now, we're going to be very busy managing post-COVID expectations from an anxious and demanding world who now expect these improvements to come as quick as possible.
Yeah. How do you keep yourself informed, up to date? What are the different sources you use?
Whoa, I'm going to answer that one first on a personal level, because I read all the time, but I realize I've become a social media addict like everybody else. So from books I've read, I hop and skip from at least 10 sources just on the news, and do the same on sustainability websites. And of course, very young in organic cotton, still reading up a lot about what happened here before my time. But also realizing that there's a real balance to be had between continuous gathering of information. And I think I do this now on an 18-hour-a-day basis. And also spending time with myself and my wife to just filter out how much of do I need, let it all bed down a bit. So also find time for myself to pick out what in the end is really of interest on the journey that I'm on. And then, hopefully that journey goes together with Oka, so that I can combine those two in the best possible way. Having made this choice 2 years ago, I I've not looked back to see where my energy is coming from. That has been remarkable. And I can remember out of the 30 years before that there were Sunday nights that I really did not want to start the week. But I haven't come across those in the last 2 years. So the course has definitely helped to find a lot of energy.
Great. So how can people find you? How can people reach out to you?
First of all, our website, so the Organic Cotton Accelerator.org is open for everybody. I have a read-in. It's very, very straightforward how we're set up. We're all on there, each of us with our special background, our special, as I think I said it earlier, everybody comes from very different skill sets, study directions. What we've done in our life before Oka has been very different. Feel free to reach out to us as Secretariat or any of the individuals who you see on the website. And it doesn't matter if you're large or small, we engage with everybody.
Cool. That's it. Thank you very much, Ruud, for being on the show. It was a pleasure having you. Super story, and I'm looking forward to see what the Organic Cotton Accelerator and, of course, you as a person are up to in the next couple of years ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jens. It's been a real pleasure. Thanks.
Thanks.
Take me to another place where the fairy tales don't end. Magical land. To another place where the fairy tales don't end. Magical